Welcome to another episode of The FWOT Show. I'm Rob Steele, that's Jesus Jones in the background, and this is the show that lets you know that it's not just you, the world has actually lost its collective mind. Yes, it is back on Fridays, because, as I mentioned last week, there is no daily show on Friday. So, if anyone's going to fill the daily show spot, it may as well be me. So there. Quick programming note, in addition to being back on Fridays, if you hear a bizarre clicking noise during this show, I apologize. There's very little I can do about it. The room where this show is recorded has a window, and for some reason that I cannot possibly fathom, there is a cardinal outside this window. No, not that kind of cardinal.
Now batting, number 7, Yadier Molina!
Not that kind either. The red one, the flappy one. Yeah, birds, might have heard of them. For some reason, it's decided it wants to mate with this window and has been basically humping it for the past 3 days. Nothing I can do about it. Sorry about the clicking. Let's get on with the show. And starting off with a story that I kinda did last week, but it's a different story in that it has different people. But that's really about it. Michael Hole and Amber Maxwell, a recently engaged couple, were trying to take a flight out of Houston, Texas, and celebrate in Costa Rica. Celebrating their engagement. Isn't that a lovely thing? Unfortunately, they booked a United flight, and things went downhill from there. Now, the flight was only about half full, so they decided to move up a couple seats. Not out of their class, keeping in the economy class, just moving up a couple seats. Because on the flights I've been on, if they're not booked, they want you to move forward. Well, not on United Flight 1737 from Houston to Costa Rica last week. No, an air marshal got involved and kicked them off the plane. Congratulations on your engagement. Now get out. Now, is this something that needed to be done? No. Could things have been resolved without kicking them off the plane? Yes. Did they get another flight the next day from United? Yes. But this goes back to the doctor who was kicked off the plane in Chicago. You remember him? The one they actually beat the crap out of and dragged off the plane? Yes. Well, just so you know, United Airlines stock has lost over $800 million since that first event. No word on the second one yet, but that does remind me. This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. United Airlines, because who needs goodwill with our customers? But actually, that's not the only airplane news we've got this week. We've got more news, and this time it's coming from Air Force One. Spectacular. Because we're not spending enough money on Donald Trump's golf trips to Mar-a-Lago, which is a horrible name. It really is. Now, Donald Jr. has decided to tag along, except he's not taking the same flight as his dad. No, basically, he hijacked Air Force One and used it for his own purposes. And when I say hijacked, I don't mean he went on with a gun. He just said, I'm the president's son and I'm taking Air Force One. You know how legal that is? The answer is not very. I'm awaiting charges myself. I think that's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. But, oh, silly me, I forgot. He's white and rich. Nothing's going to happen to him. But in regards to all these golf trips, Eric Trump came out with a really fairly bizarre explanation for why Donnie does all this. He says that the president doesn't like to sit and have conversations with people. He likes to actually go out and play golf and talk with people. Stating, quote, "It has been an effective tool for my father to go down and get to know someone while not sitting across a wooden partition, which instantly makes a relationship more strenuous." Wooden partition. Oh, you mean a table. Table. Wooden partition. I can just picture regular families having this conversation in the food preparatory room "Oh, Mother, I see that you have finished preparing dinner. Shall I set the wooden partition?" Really? How out of touch could this family possibly be? But, these are just the kids. Let's get on to Dad, because Dad's more important in this family, allegedly. I guess we'll start with a bit of sports to go along with him. The Super Bowl champion New England Patriots made their apparently semi-annual trip to the White House to meet the president because they won the Super Bowl. And I don't care. But the thing is, only half the team showed up because the other half said, "I have absolutely no interest in meeting this guy. He's dangerous, he's an ass, and I don't want to talk to him." So they didn't show up, which I think is cool. Although one of the players that did show up,
Rob Gronkowski,
the tight end that everyone knows because he's a spectacular player, yeah, whatever, he interrupted Sean Spicer's press conference. That's why he went, because he walked into Sean Spicer's press conference and offered to help him out. Spicer, of course, should have said yes, because he needs all the help he can get. He didn't. End of story. Back at Donnie Trump. He's had a lot of trouble this past week trying to remember things, and things that he should know, like the name Paul Ryan. Yeah, Paul Ryan, guy who looks kind of like Smeagol. Yeah, that one. Donald Trump made a speech recently in Paul Ryan's hometown of Janesville, Wisconsin. And the speech was, just about as nonsensical as any of his other speeches, but this one had a twist to it. He kept calling Paul Ryan Ron, which is not his name at all. Did you hear this clip from last week with regards to who did we bomb?
We've just launched 59 missiles heading to Iraq.
Well, you headed to Syria?
Yes, heading toward Syria.
Oops. Remembers the chocolate cake that he ate. Can't remember which country he dropped 59 missiles on. That's the commander-in-chief that we want. Now, there was another story that came out that said Donald Trump lied about sending an aircraft carrier to North Korea. My thought on this is, I don't think he lied about it. I think he just didn't know where it was going. He said he was sending one of the largest aircraft carriers in the Pacific to North Korea because we're going to show them what's what. Well, he got part of it right. It is one of the largest aircraft carriers we have. It is in the Pacific. Unfortunately, it was headed to Australia, which is roughly 3,500 miles in a different direction altogether. So I'm not thinking he's so much a commander-in-chief as it is a lieutenant-in-chief. My Army friends are going to get that. But that's not all for our president, if you really want to call him that. Do you remember when I mentioned, I guess it was about a year ago, the lawsuit that the Miami paint store had because they did a lot of work at the Trump National Doral Miami Resort and he just didn't pay them? Well, it turns out that he's not immune from prosecution. The Florida Supreme Court said, yeah, not only do you have to pay them, we're going to up it a bit. He owed them roughly $200,000. Now he's got to pay $300,000. Good. And yet, still not finished. This past Sunday was Easter, one of those big Christian celebration things that for some reason involves eggs. No, not a pagan thing at all. Anyway, Donald Trump had a couple of things that didn't go the way they were supposed to. For example, there was a small child, I'm going to say about 3 years old. I don't know how old he actually is because it wasn't in the article. Did see the video where the kid handed Donald Trump a hat so Donald could autograph it because, if you're going to meet the president, may as well get an autograph, right? Donald autographed it and then threw it across the crowd. Really? Bullying a kid at Easter on camera. Yes, that's our president. Right. Although don't feel too bad for the kid because the hat was returned and he was comforted by a visiting Barack Obama. But again, still not quite done yet. Donald Trump's immigrant wife is the one who had to remind the President of the United States that when the national anthem is played, you're supposed to put your hand over your heart. She had to remind him. There's video. Go look for it. I suppose the good thing is Twitter, if you want to call this a good thing, Twitter was all over him faster than a Rudy Gobert injury in an NBA playoff game. If you don't get that reference, Gobert played a whopping 18 seconds before his knees gave out. Spectacular. But speaking of our president and Twitter, I did find an interesting post this week, and I forgot to write down who said it, so I apologize if this was yours. But it reads like this. I'm really enjoying this time travel thriller I'm reading where a man stuck in 2013 tweets desperate warnings to his 2017 self who has somehow become president of the United States. Read the tweets. That's funny. Strange news out of North Carolina, where a lawsuit against the bathroom bill was dropped. Now, the good part of this is that the bill has pretty much been thrown out. You can use whichever bathroom you want. I don't care about that part of the story. The part of the story that I was interested in was where part of the settlement in this issue stated that there will be no new non-discrimination laws passed in North Carolina until 2020. Does that make any sense? If you find a new discrimination law, well, you've got a couple more years before we're going to do anything about it. I'm sorry. What? Here's some more things that don't make any sense to me. People magazine claims that Julia Roberts is the most beautiful woman in the world. This is the 5th time she's been given the honor, and a lot of people disagree with that, including me. I mean, yes, Julia Roberts is a pretty woman. I suppose that's a pun. But at the top of the list, I'm going to put my wife, because I don't want to sleep on the couch. But a lot of people are saying, why aren't there people with color in their skin? You know, black people, Indian people, Asian people, Native American people. Since this list has been going, there have been 3 non-white women to win this. And a lot of people are saying that this falls into the category of white nonsense. It's apparently a new movement, kind of like Black Lives Matter, only they're flipping it and calling it white nonsense. I'm going to go ahead and say that white nonsense being blamed for the Julia Roberts being called the most beautiful woman in the world, I think that's just complete nonsense, because there's a lot of white people who are equally confused, including me, although I'm beige, damn it. But speaking of white nonsense, Bill O'Reilly was fired from Fox News. Now, frankly, I don't really care that much as to why, although I'm told it's a sexual harassment thing because he likes to sexually harass people and they're tired of putting up with it. But when I Googled this to find out whether it was real, looking up sources, which is something Fox News needs to do, one of the things Google put up were the top 3 tweets concerning Bill O'Reilly and fired. Now, the first one came from Bill himself. One came from CNN. One of the tweets that came up was from Zesty Queer at the Choco Otter. Wow, that's a thing? And I apologize if that sounded like sexual harassment. I'm just going with the name. I think it's odd that that's something Google picked. But speaking of sexual harassment and Fox News, that's not the only bit of Fox News sexual harassment. Let's go to a live show called The Five, which frankly I'd never heard of because I don't watch Fox News. However, there was someone on the show named Dana Perino. She's a co-host of the show. And one of her co-hosts, Greg Gutfeld, I didn't name him, claimed that Dana needs to give her dressmaker a raise because it's very pretty and you're giving the rest of America a raise as well, implying, hey, that dress is hot. You're giving the entire country an erection, said on live television. But of course it's Fox and he's white, so nothing will happen to him until he gets 16 other cases of sexual harassment against him. Although 17 is not really a magic number. For example, there's a list of 17 women that have accused, who were they accusing of sexual harassment? Donald Trump. 17 women have accused him of the same thing, and, it's not Fox News, it's our government who is even slower on so many levels. But hey, while we're at it, speaking of harassment, this time the good old-fashioned racist kind. Oh dear. There's a senator from the semi-great state of Florida named Frank Artilles, who was part of a group this week called the Republican Caucus and said that the only reason that the Senate President Joe Negron was able to land the job of leader of this group was because there were 6, well, he used the N-word as part of the group. There were also times when he referred to one of the female members of the group as a fucking asshole, a bitch, or simply girl. The Republican Party. Because who needs goodwill with our customers? Oh, wait. Maybe United and United and the Republican Party are in cahoots. Nah, that makes too much sense. Don't know if you saw this. Just a quick story on Arkansas, where starting last week, they are going to be executing 7 prisoners over an 11-day schedule because they're doing it with lethal injection. And the reason for so many at a time is, at the end of April, one of those lethal injection drugs expires. There's an expiration date on lethal injection drugs? What's it gonna do? Make them better? Seriously? But of course, we're not really good with drugs in this country, especially vaccinations, where people in Texas have apparently decided, oh, why bother vaccinating against the mumps? Well, mumps have hit a 20-year high in Texas this year. So far, they've had 221 cases. That's the most since 1994, and, folks, this is April. There's gonna be more. But hey, while we're at it, speaking of dumbasses, have you seen the pictures that have been floating around social media in the past week about how public schools are forcing children to do a Muslim prayer? Look at this picture where children are bent over in the halls facing the walls and everything. It's called a tornado drill. Seriously. The complaint is, look at all these children being forced to do Muslim prayer. No, they're not, because even if the walls on the sides of this picture are facing east and west, this means half of them are facing the wrong damn direction. It's a tornado drill. Perhaps homeschooling wasn't for you after all. Bunch of little stories to finish the show up with. Let's start with one out of Utah, where a Mormon priest was sentenced to life in prison on 10 counts of forcible sexual abuse and 1 count of object rape. Now, the reason this made national headlines was because the judge said, oh, I thought he was a good guy. It turns out he's not, which immediately makes me think, why is this judge on the bench during this trial? If you know him, conflict of interest, but sentenced him to life in prison. You know what? That's fine. The problem I have with this story was, when you have a rape victim in a news story, they're supposed to leave the name out. The problem with this is, they didn't exactly. They said that the victim is the 19-year-old sister-in-law of the guy who raped her. Oh, right, because that's going to keep her anonymous. In similar sexual harassment news, because that seems to be the prevalent thing on today's show, there was a 6th grader in Portland, Maine, who said that she was tired of the dress code at her school and how she felt humiliated when the teachers would come over and measure the straps on her shirts to make sure they conformed. Well, you know what? She decided, screw them, as they should, and wore whatever she wanted. Now, she's not wearing anything revealing. She's not going, look, here's my breasts, like you get on, I don't know, MTV or ABC or CBS or anywhere else. Nope, just wearing normal everyday clothes. The school board has said, no, her body is a distraction and they can't wear things like that. You know what? I had distractions like that growing up. I also had parents that taught me, you might be able to look, but don't touch. So is it a distraction? Frankly, yeah, it is sometimes. Because hormones are turning on and, look, breasts! And you get distracted. You know what? Okay, frankly, I didn't actually get over it because I still get happy when I see them. But I also move on and concentrate on my schoolwork because that's what you're supposed to do. Get over it. But we can't really seem to get over attractiveness in this country. I'm not really sure what the purpose of this article was, but Time magazine released an article talking about the least attractive cities in America. I'm not going to read the list. I'm not going to recommend that you read the list either. But it has a list of the cities that have the least attractive people in them. Why? Why is this a thing? It can do nothing positive. Conceptually, it's hurtful. It's one thing if someone posts that, hey, Clevelanders are ugly, but it's different if Time magazine says it. If nothing else, wouldn't that hurt magazine sales and website hits in those cities? And I've looked at the list. They're big cities. Of course, cities can do stupid things too. I saw a local ad for a Cinco de Mayo festival on May 7th. Some of you are going to get that. The rest of you can ask questions. But speaking of advertising, back in the 80s, it was, where's the beef? You remember the Wendy's ad, where's the beef? I think we found it. Wendy's has a beef with Hardee's because Hardee's put out a 4-menu item for a $4 deal. Wendy's has had that advertising running forever. Well, the short form of this story is that there ended up being a Twitter war between Hardee's and Wendy's, ending with Hardee's blocked Wendy's on Twitter and Wendy's is so upset about it. I think it's really sad that we've gotten into a society that is more interested in Twitter than actual news. Meanwhile, at McDonald's, a drive-thru worker recognized the Facebook killer, and he's the one that delayed the order at the guy's drive-thru window so the police could come and catch him. So let's see. Which is the good fast food restaurant? This week, McDonald's wins. But speaking of Twitter, which I did before McDonald's, I want to ask this. I don't tweet a whole lot, but when I do, I keep getting emails from Twitter that says, I have to change my password because there's unusual activity. Yeah, the unusual activity is me using it. Is that just me? Does anyone else get that? I'm asking here. Seriously. I'm also curious to know if anyone else saw this particular ad. This past Sunday, I'm wondering if it was a faux pas or if it was done on purpose. I was playing the game on my cell phone when an ad popped up at the bottom for an adjustable bed. Not going to say which one. You can figure it out. Now, the ad showed a couple waking up in the bed, and they were waking up happy. And waking up happy, that's a good thing. I'm fine with that. But the couple itself threw me off a bit. The guy in the couple looked like Ryan Reynolds. I know it wasn't, but, same kind of good looks. And it took me a while to realize that it was a she that he was in bed with, because while the other person was wearing a nightie and had longish brown hair, the way the hair laid and the fact that this ad was really small made it look like she had a beard, which made her look like Jesus. And this past Sunday was Easter. I'm wondering if that was done on purpose. It's very weird. Strange customer service I would think you would get with this company. And just to make the show symmetrical, we started with customer service. Let's end with it as well. Only this time, you shouldn't really be getting customer service from 911, should you? Because this past week, a 17-year-old in Lincoln Park, Michigan, was helping her father recover from brain surgery when he had a seizure. So she called 911, like you do, and didn't get an answer. So she called a second time, and someone finally answered the phone, and she said, "Can I please get an ambulance?" They asked for the address, she gave it, and there was no reply. So, as you would expect, she got a little bit upset. She has said, what the is going on here? Am I going to get a fucking ambulance? She was told, are you going to swear again or are you a stupid ass? And I'm not going to send you an ambulance until you apologize to me. From 911. The father died. How's that for an ending to the show? If you think it should have been happier, and if you think 911 in Lincoln Park, Michigan should take its head out of its ass, go ahead and send me an email. Write to me at rob@thefwotshow.com. Don't forget to listen to the shows all over the Coil Entertainment Network at coil.us, COYL. Lots of fun shows, including the forthcoming 2 Pages project, a bit of an upgrade from 2 Pages of Mystery, and this Sunday we'll again have another episode of Cinema Savants with the wonderful Todd Vandenberg. I would like to thank Jesus Jones for playing the music in the background, and I'd like to remind you to subscribe to the show on iTunes or the Google Play Store or wherever you happen to find podcasts. So until next week, I'd like you all to have a good weekend and be careful, because it's really damn weird out there.